My mom excluded me from Mother's Day, saying, "To all my successful children, some make choices that reflect our values, others don't. I no longer count them among my children." Years later, I became CEO and she showed up at my office begging for money. What happened next was the most satisfying moment of my entire life. Let me explain exactly how I went from being the family disappointment to completely destroying my mother's narrative about success and showing her what real power looks like. My name is Marcus, I'm 32, and I currently serve as CEO of Precision Manufacturing Solutions, pulling in $340,000 annually plus equity. But 5 years ago, I was just a factory worker running injection molding machines for $18 an hour, living in a studio apartment and getting excluded from family gatherings because my career choice didn't meet my mother's standards. The thing about my family is that success was always measured in prestige, not substance. My brother Martin became a lawyer, my sister Alana married a doctor, and my sister Renee works in marketing for a tech company. They all had college degrees, professional wardrobes, and the kind of jobs you mention at cocktail parties. I had steel-toed boots, grease under my fingernails, and a paycheck that kept me fed, but never impressed anyone. When my dad died suddenly of a heart attack when I was 22, I made what my family considered the biggest mistake of my life. I turned down a partial scholarship to State University to stay home and help with expenses. My mom was devastated emotionally and financially, and someone needed to step up immediately. While my siblings were establishing their careers in other cities, I took the factory job and contributed $800 monthly toward the mortgage and bills. For 3 years, I kept that house afloat, while my mother grieved and slowly rebuilt her life. I worked double shifts, picked up weekend overtime, and never asked for thanks or recognition. I thought I was being loyal, responsible, and loving. What I didn't understand was that in my family's value system, sacrifice without prestige was just failure with extra steps. The first sign of trouble came during family dinners when I'd visit my siblings. They'd talk about cases, medical procedures, marketing campaigns, and I'd sit there with nothing to contribute except stories about production quotas and equipment maintenance. I started noticing the subtle eye rolls, the quick subject changes when I mentioned work, the way conversations became more animated when I left the room. But the real breaking point was Mother's Day 2019. I was on my lunch break sitting outside the factory when I opened the family WhatsApp group to see my mom's annual Mother's Day message. Every year, she'd send this elaborate post with photos and heartfelt words about her children's accomplishments. This year was different. The message was addressed to Martin, Alana, and Renee by name. She praised Martin's recent promotion to senior associate, celebrated Alana's husband's new practice, and gushed about Renee's marketing award. At the bottom, like a digital dagger, she wrote, "To all my successful children, I'm proud of the people you've become. Some make choices that reflect our values, others don't. I no longer count them among my children." I read it 3 times, hoping I was misunderstanding, but there was no ambiguity. After 3 years of keeping her house, paying her bills, and sacrificing my education for her stability, I had been publicly erased from the family because my job wasn't prestigious enough. The silence that followed was deafening. Not one sibling asked where I was in the message. Not one person questioned the cruelty of that public dismissal. The group chat continued with congratulations and heart emojis, as if I had never existed. I didn't respond emotionally. Instead, I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to beg for acceptance or try to explain my worth to people who couldn't see it. I was going to become undeniably successful on my own terms, using skills and advantages they didn't even know I possessed. What my family never understood was that working in manufacturing had given me something their white-collar jobs hadn't: a deep understanding of how things actually get built, optimized, and scaled. While they push papers and manage relationships, I was learning systems, logistics, process improvement, and operational efficiency from the ground up. I started that very day. I blocked the family group chat, archived all the photos and memories I used to scroll through when I missed them, and began treating my professional development like a military campaign. I wasn't just going to succeed. I was going to become the kind of success they'd have to acknowledge, whether they wanted to or not. The first step was education, but not the traditional kind they'd expected me to pursue. I enrolled in night classes for lean manufacturing certification, Six Sigma training, and supply chain management. I spent my own money, $3,200 over 8 months, on courses that would make me irreplaceable in manufacturing operations. During the day, I worked my regular shifts, but I started volunteering for every process improvement project, equipment upgrade, and efficiency assessment. I created detailed reports on production bottlenecks, developed cost-saving proposals, and basically became the unofficial consultant for operational problems no one else wanted to tackle. Within 6 months, I had documented $47,000 in annual savings through process improvements I'd identified and implemented. The plant manager, Robert Hayes, started calling me into meetings where decisions actually got made. I wasn't just running machines anymore. I was analyzing entire production systems and finding ways to optimize them. My breakthrough came when I developed a predictive maintenance model for our injection molding equipment. Using data analysis skills I taught myself through online courses, I created a system that reduced unplanned downtime by 34% and saved the company $78,000 annually in emergency repairs and lost production. Robert was so impressed that he recommended me for the newly created position of Operations Analyst. It came with a salary increase to $52,000, my own office, and most importantly, recognition as someone who understood manufacturing from both the technical and strategic perspectives. But I was just getting started. In my new role, I had access to company financials, supplier contracts, and operational data that revealed inefficiencies throughout our entire supply chain. I spent nights and weekends building comprehensive analyses of our procurement processes, inventory management, and production scheduling. After 8 months as operations analyst, I presented a 47-page proposal to senior management outlining a complete operational restructuring that would save the company $340,000 annually while increasing production capacity by 22%. The proposal included specific supplier renegotiations, equipment upgrades, workflow redesigns, and staffing optimizations. The presentation lasted 3 hours. By the end, the CEO, Patricia Hendricks, was taking notes and asking detailed questions about implementation timelines. 2 weeks later, I was promoted to operations manager with a salary of $78,000 and a $15,000 signing bonus. More importantly, Patricia started treating me as a strategic advisor rather than just an employee. She'd call me into meetings with suppliers, consultants, and potential clients because I could speak intelligently about every aspect of our manufacturing processes. I wasn't just managing operations. I was becoming the person who understood how to make the entire business more profitable. During this entire period of rapid career advancement, my family had no idea what was happening. I'd moved to a better apartment, bought a reliable car, and started building substantial savings, but I never mentioned any of it to my siblings or mother. Why would I? They'd made it clear I wasn't part of their success stories. The real acceleration happened when Patricia decided to acquire a smaller manufacturing company that was struggling with operational efficiency. Instead of hiring an expensive consulting firm, she asked me to lead the integration and optimization project. I spent 3 months completely restructuring their operations, implementing the systems and processes that had worked so well at our main facility. The results were dramatic. Production efficiency increased by 41%, costs decreased by 28%, and what had been a struggling acquisition became a highly profitable division within 6 months. Patricia was so impressed that she offered me the position of Director of Operations for both facilities at $115,000 annually, plus performance bonuses that could add another $25,000. More importantly, she started talking about succession planning and the importance of having operational expertise at the executive level. That's when I realized I wasn't just climbing a career ladder. I was being groomed for leadership at a company that was growing rapidly and needed someone who understood both the technical and strategic sides of manufacturing. I continued my education, earning a certificate in executive leadership from a respected business program, and completed advanced training in mergers and acquisitions. Patricia paid for most of this education as professional development, seeing it as an investment in my future role with the company. 2 years later, when Patricia announced her retirement, the board of directors didn't even conduct an external search for her replacement. I was unanimously selected as CEO with a compensation package of $240,000 base salary, performance bonuses, and equity that made my total annual compensation approximately $340,000. The local business journal ran a feature story about my promotion. From factory floor to executive suite, the unlikely rise of Marcus Blackwood. The article detailed my unconventional path to leadership and the dramatic operational improvements I'd implemented throughout my career. Within hours of the article being published online, my phone started buzzing with messages from family members I hadn't heard from in years. Cousins, aunts, and family friends suddenly wanted to congratulate me and catch up. But notably absent were any messages from Martin, Alana, Renee, or my mother. A week later, I got a text from Alana. Saw the article, proud of you. Mom's been talking about it nonstop. She wants to reach out. The audacity was breathtaking. After years of treating me like an embarrassment, they wanted to reach out now that I could be useful to their narrative of family success. But I'd learned something important during my rise. Respect is earned through results, not given through genetics. I didn't respond to Alana's text. I didn't need their validation anymore, and I certainly wasn't going to make it easy for them to rewrite history and pretend they'd always been supportive. 2 days later, my phone rang. I recognized my mother's voice immediately, though I hadn't heard it in over 2 years. Marcus, I just wanted to say I saw the article. You've really made something of yourself. Her tone was bright and casual, as if we'd spoken last week instead of her publicly disowning me years earlier. She continued without waiting for my response. I always knew you had potential. You just needed to find your path. I've been telling everyone about the article. Your aunts are so proud. That last line told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't about reconciliation or apology. It was about her ability to claim credit for my success now that it reflected well on her. She wanted to dust off her successful son trophy and display it to her social circle. Please don't call me again, I said calmly, and hung up. But I knew this wouldn't end with a phone call. People like my mother don't accept rejection gracefully, especially when there's social status at stake. She'd escalate, probably through guilt manipulation or public pressure. I needed to be prepared. 3 months later, my assistant buzzed me during a morning meeting with our largest client. There's a woman in the lobby claiming to be your mother. She says it's urgent. I excused myself from the meeting and walked to my office window overlooking the lobby. There she was, sitting on one of the leather chairs like she belonged there, dressed in her best outfit with a folder in her lap that probably contained printouts of my article and photos she planned to show anyone who'd listen. I called security immediately. There's a woman in the lobby claiming to be my mother. Please escort her from the building. She's not authorized to be here, and I don't want to see her. I watched through the window as 2 security guards approached her. She looked surprised, then indignant, probably showing them her ID to prove our shared last name meant something. But corporate security doesn't care about family drama. They care about authorization. And she had none. As they guided her toward the exit, she looked up at the windows, probably hoping I was watching. I was, but not with guilt or regret. I was watching with the satisfaction of someone who had finally achieved a position where manipulative people couldn't force access to his life. She didn't leave immediately after being escorted out. According to our security cameras, she sat on the front steps for over an hour, occasionally looking up at the building as if her presence alone could guilt me into changing my mind. Eventually, she called an Uber and left, looking defeated and confused. That afternoon, I received an email from Martin. What you did today was cruel. She's your mother, regardless of past mistakes. I archived the email without responding. I wasn't going to justify maintaining boundaries to people who had watched her publicly disown me without saying a word. If they wanted to lecture me about family loyalty, they should have demonstrated some when it mattered. But the real satisfaction came 6 months later, when I learned through mutual acquaintances that my mother had been struggling financially. Her part-time job barely covered her expenses, and she'd been hoping to leverage our reconciliation into financial support from her successful CEO son. When that strategy failed, she'd been forced to downsize to a smaller apartment and significantly reduce her lifestyle. Meanwhile, my company had secured 2 major contracts worth $2 million in annual revenue, largely based on the operational efficiency improvements I'd implemented. My personal compensation had increased accordingly, and I was being recognized throughout the industry as an innovative leader in manufacturing optimization. I bought a beautiful house in the best neighborhood in town, with 4 bedrooms, a 3-car garage, and a home office where I could work remotely. The mortgage payments were easily manageable on my salary, and for the first time in my life, I had true financial security and professional respect. The contrast was perfect. While my family dealt with the consequences of their shallow values and manipulative behavior, I was building a life based on competence, integrity, and genuine achievement. I'd proven that success doesn't require their approval. It just requires dedication, strategic thinking, and the persistence to prove doubters wrong. Today, I'm engaged to Elena, a brilliant marketing executive who values substance over status, and we're planning a wedding that will be attended by colleagues, friends, and chosen family, people who earn their place in our lives through loyalty and genuine care. My mother and siblings weren't invited, obviously. They burned that bridge when they decided professional prestige mattered more than family loyalty. But I heard through the grapevine that my mother has been telling people she's proud of her successful son and hoping for an invitation that will never come. Sometimes the best revenge isn't dramatic confrontation or public humiliation. Sometimes it's simply building a life so successful and fulfilling that toxic people can only watch from the outside, knowing they chose their shallow values over genuine relationships. I learned that respect isn't inherited through genetics, it's earned through actions. And the people who couldn't see my worth when times were difficult don't deserve access to the life I built when times became prosperous. My mother wanted successful children she could brag about. She just never understood that true success includes the wisdom to exclude people who only show up when it benefits them. That lesson cost her a relationship with her most successful child, and it was a price she'll pay for the rest of her life.